We are busy with the topic of algebraic expressions. In today's video, we are going to focus on multiplication and division of expressions. Previous video, we focused on the addition and subtraction. So let's have a look at multiplication and division. So for exercise 8.5, I'm first going to look at number 1c. So we have 2p multiplied by 3p squared multiplied by 4p to the third. Now, we have this three-step process when we multiply or divide. We first look at the signs. So we have a positive times a positive times a positive, which is a positive. We tend not to write down the positive. It's an invisible positive if it's not there. So next we look at the coefficients, the numbers. So we have 2 times 3, which is 6, times 4, which is 24. So we have positive 24. We don't have to write the positive. Then we look at the variables or the letters of the alphabet. In this case, we only have p. Now, if we multiply, then we have to add the powers. This p, there's only one, so it's an invisible 1. So we have 1, we are multiplying, so our p's increase. So now we have the 1p, we are multiplying with 2 more p's, so we have to add 2 p's. And we are multiplying, so we increase our number of p's with 3. So we still have to add 3. So we can simplify. We have now p to the power 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 3 is 6. Let's look at number D. Now for number D, we are dividing. So again, we have our three-step process with multiplication or division. We look at the signs. We have a positive, divide by a positive, which gives us a positive. We don't write it down. It's according to convention an invisible positive. Next, we look at the coefficients or the numbers. So we have 144 divided by 12. 12 goes into 144 12 times. Next, we look at the variables or the letters of the alphabet. Firstly, we have x. We have 2 x's. We are dividing. If we are dividing, our x's become less. We are dividing by an invisible 1. So we have to reduce our number of x's by 1. Next, we have the y's. We know if we write letters of the alphabet next to each other, it means divide or multiply. Well, next to each other is multiply, below each other is divide. So we currently have 2 y's. We are dividing, we again have an invisible y, or 1 rather, so we only have 1 y. So when we divide, we reduce our number of y's. We reduce it by the 1. So we can simplify. We have 2 minus 1. We only have 1x. We don't write down the invisible 1. We have 2 minus 1. So it's 1y. We don't again write down the invisible 1. So now for number 2, we are going to combine division and multiplication. So let's look at number A. So we are multiplying and dividing. The rules basically stay the same. It's just a bit more focus. So we first look at the signs. We have a positive times a positive, which is a positive. A positive divided by a positive is still a positive. So we know we are going to have a positive answer. It's an invisible positive. Now we look at the signs. So we have 18 times 2, which will give us 36. So we have 36 at this stage. We divide the 36 by 12. 12 go into 36 3 times. And now we look at the variables or the letters of the alphabet. Well, we have A's. So we have 2 A's. We are multiplying. If we are multiplying, the number of A's will increase. There's an invisible 1 here. So it will increase by 1. And then we are dividing. If we divide, the A's will decrease, in this case by 3. So we have to subtract 3. Then we also have a B. We have, in fact, 3 of them. So it's B to the 3. And now we are multiplying. If we are multiplying, we are increasing our number of B's. So we are multiplying with each other. So we have an invisible 1. So we are adding. If we divide, we are decreasing our number of B's. So we decrease by 2 since there's a power of 2. And now we can simplify. So 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. So we have a to the power 0. And now we are multiplying with b. We have 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. Okay, now anything to the power 0 is simply 1. You know a to the power 1 is 1. A to the power 1 is a. But now if we don't have powers, we can't have any a's. So now we rather just have the constant of 1. So this just becomes 1. So it's in fact 3 times 1 times b squared. And we know if we multiply something by 1, it stays that something. So it's 3 times 1 is 3. So we have simply 3b squared. Let's look at another one, number C. So we are multiplying and dividing. We know when we do that, we have a 3-step process. We first look at the signs. We have a positive times a positive, which is a positive. A positive divided by positive is still a positive. It will be a positive, in this case invisible. So next we look at the coefficients or the numbers. So 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 divided by 6 is simply 1. Again, it's an invisible 1. Now we look at the variables or the letters of the alphabet. We have M, there's an invisible 1 on it. We are multiplying, so we are going to increase the number of M's. So we have another one that we are increasing by, an invisible 1, so we have to add 1. Here we don't even have 1, so it's 0 M's. You could say plus 0, but yeah, you don't really have to. It's an invisible 0. Next we look at our N's. So we have 1 N, it's an invisible 1. We actually started with 0, but we can keep it as invisible. We don't even have to write it. So we have 1n. We are dividing, which means we are going to decrease the powers of our n. So we are going to decrease by 1 because there's an invisible 1. So now we have 1 plus 1 is 2, and we have 1 minus 1, which is 0. So we actually don't have any n's. So we have to simplify that to 1. Anything to the power 0 is 1. So we have, in fact, m squared times 1. We know 1 times anything is that anything. So it is simply m squared. Now, number 3, we have division in another format, because we know we can write divide, or we can simply have the line and put something at the bottom to divide something at the top by whatever is at the bottom. So this is in fact the same as 3a plus a squared, all in brackets, divide by a. It's just the same thing. Okay, now what is of crucial importance here is when we have one and only one term at the bottom, and we have it in fractional form, we are allowed to separate the terms. So for number 3b, we can say it is the same as the 3a over the a plus the a squared over the a. So we simply have the divorce or the separation of the terms, but it's only possible if we have one term at the bottom. So now that we have done this, let's see if we can simplify. So there are now more than one way of doing it. We can cancel a's. That's maybe the most straightforward way. So we can say this a cancel with that a. We can cancel when we multiply or divide. So here we are dividing. So we simply have 3 remaining after cancelling. Now we have a plus sign. We have 2 a's at the top, or a squared at the top. We only have a to the power 1. So we can cancel the 1a at the bottom with one of the powers at the top. So the power 2 becomes now power 1. So we have simply a to the power 1. We keep the 1 as invisible by convention. So it's 3 plus a. Now we are adding. If we are adding, we know we can only add like terms. A and 3 are unlike terms, so this is in simplified form. The alternative method that you could have used is you could have said here, instead of cancelling, you could say, okay, we have a 3, we have the a at the top, but when we divide, we decrease the number, the power of the a by 1, since we have an invisible 1 at the bottom, so we have to subtract by 1. And then for the second portion, we have a to the 2 at the top, but now when we divide, by a, we decrease the powers of the a's. There's an invisible 1, so we decrease by 1. So now we have again 3, 1 minus 1 is 0, so it's a to the 0, plus 2 minus 1 is 1. We don't write the invisible 1 by convention. And now anything to the power 0 is simply 1. We still have this a. 3 times 1 is 3, so we have 3 plus a. So we get exactly the same answer, but we can see it's a bit of a longer process. So let's look at number C. So only difference is where or actually rather D, the only difference is where we add for B 2 terms at the top. We have now 3 terms at the top. We have 1 term at the bottom. So we can separate. It's now only we separate or have more divorces. So we have the 6a over 6. We split it or separate it from the 18b, which we can keep over 6. And we separate it from the 12c, which is also over 6, Let's see if we can simplify. Well, we can have the 6's that cancel. It's possible to cancel when you multiply or divide. So we simply have a remaining. We have a plus 18 divided by 6 is simply 3. We only have a b at the top, so we keep that b. Or we could say it's b over 1, which is still b. Anything over 1 is that anything. And we have a negative 6 goes into 12 twice. We have the c at the top, no c at the bottom, so we have c to the power 1. We don't bother about the invisible 1, it's simply c. Now we have a plus 3b minus 2c. We know a's, b's and c's are unlike terms. We cannot add or subtract unlike terms, only like terms. So this is in simplified form. So now we need to expand. Now expand means to become more or to become extended. So we are multiplying, we have brackets. Usually we use BODMAS, which says brackets first, but now we have a problem in this bracket because we have an x, we subtract a 2y when we are not allowed to add, or it's not possible to add and subtract unlike terms, only like terms, so we can't simplify. So now we have to work out another way of doing it, and we are going to use what we call the so-called distributive law. So we are going to distribute this x. Distribute is in a sense meaning spreading. So we are spreading or distributing this x over each term. We are first going to spread it over the first term, and then next we are going to spread it over the second term. So the strategy is you take what's in front of the brackets. In this case, if there is nothing in front, it means it's a positive. So we have positive 8. We multiply, because brackets means multiply, by the first term. The first term is an x. Then we take again what's in front of the brackets. There's a positive if it's invisible, so we have positive 8. And now we multiply by the second term, which is inside the bracket, which is negative 2y. So we have positive 8 times x. We know multiply we can simply write as the number and the letter of the alphabet next to each other, or the coefficient and the variable. That means multiply. We drop the invisible plus, and now we have a positive times a negative, which gives us a negative. So that's the first step, look at the sign. Second step, look at the numbers or coefficients. 8 times 2 is 16. Third step, look at the variable letter of the alphabet. We only have y. We cannot add or subtract because we have unlike terms. We can only add and subtract like terms, so it is already simplified. Let's look at number C to further illustrate this distributive concept, especially since it's a new one. So again, usually we would want to use BODMAS. If this was just a 2 and a 4, we will simply add to get 6 and multiply by negative 4. But now it isn't like that. There's an x and a 4. So we have two x's and a 4. They are unlike terms. We cannot add. Therefore, we make another plan. We use the distributive law, which says take what's in front of the brackets, distribute it over each term. So first multiply by the first term, which is 2x, brackets means multiply. Then take again what stands in front of the brackets, the -4, and distribute it over the second term. So multiply by the +4. So now we can simplify. We have the 3-step process when we multiply or divide. First look at the signs. A negative times a positive is a negative. Then look at the numbers. 4 times 2 is 8. Then look at the letters. We have an x only. So here we are multiplying. Brackets means multiplying. First look at the sign. Negative times positive is negative. Look at the numbers. 4 times 4 is 16. In this case, we don't even have the letters or the variables. And now we have x's and numbers. We cannot add or subtract. They are unlike terms. We are only allowed to add and subtract like terms. So this is in simplified form. Let's practice some more of these expansions. Expand these expressions and simplify where possible. So number 5b. Only thing in comparison to 4 is where we had to go through the process once. We now have to go through the process twice because we have 2 sets of brackets where we can't use BODMAS, so we have to use the distributive law. So let's focus on the first bracket. So the rule is take what's in front of the brackets, the negative, multiply that by the first term inside the bracket, which is 6. Then take again what's in front of the brackets, the minus, multiply by the second term in the brackets, which is the positive 2m. So we're done with the first bracket. Now we do exactly the same for the second bracket. So our rule is, when we use the distributive law, take what's in front of the bracket, plus 3, multiply by the first term inside the bracket, which is 2m. Then take again what's in front of the brackets, plus 3, multiply by the second term inside the brackets, which is -1. So now we can simplify. A negative times a positive is a negative times 6. A negative times a positive is a negative. So we have a -2m. A positive times a positive is a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. We still have to multiply by m. Positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 1 is 3. And now we have some like terms. Let's group. So we have -6, -3, and then we also have -2m plus 6m. We can simplify inside the brackets because it's like terms. We owe 6, we owe 3, we therefore owe 9. We owe 2, we have 6, so we have enough. We therefore have 4 m's. And we know we can't add m's and numbers. They are unlike terms. We can only add and subtract like terms. Let's finally focus on 5d. So again, we cannot add what's in the brackets. It's unlike terms. Make another trick. Use the distributive law. That says take what's in front of the brackets, multiply that by the first term, which is 5x. Take again what's in front of the brackets. If there's no sign, it's a positive, so plus 2 times second term inside the brackets, which is positive y. We are done with the first bracket. Let's move on to the second. The rule is take what's in front of the brackets, multiply by the first term inside the bracket, which is the x. Take again what is in front of the bracket, multiply by the second term inside the bracket, which is negative 4y. And now we can simplify. Positive times a positive is a positive, invisible. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 times x is 10x. Positive times a positive is a positive. 2 times y is 2y. Negative 3x. Negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 4 is 12 times y. Okay, we have some terms that are like, so let's group them. We have 10x. We get rid of 3x. We have 2y's. We add another 12y's. So we can simplify inside the brackets as it's like terms. We have 10x's, we give 3 away, now we have 7x's. We have 2y's, we get another 12, so we have 14y's. Y's and x's are not like terms, they are unlike, so we cannot add or subtract. It is already in simplified form.